Hi everybody, my name is Zhenya, and I'm the lead developer in Clever Labs. Clever Labs is a company that develops web applications for different clients, and also we develop our own products. And today I'm going to tell you about the development of infrastructure for manual testing on an example of our startup. We'll tell you how we started it, how the infrastructure developed itself, and then I'll tell you about our tool that we created as a result. I think that this presentation will be interesting for those who would like to improve their testing infrastructure, and for those who maybe do not have an infrastructure, and it also might be of interest to those who want to have an instrument for the development of their stand jigs quite quickly. So the started project that we started in 2015. In the very beginning, we did not have any testers or even the tester department. Programmers made the code themselves, tested it, and it was quite logical for us. And when many changes are made, we don't need any staging for testing. Then the project goes to production. We start selling stuff, and then we already start testing. The owner, the analyst does it, and we need to involve as many people as possible because people have to know the product, have to be acquainted with the product, and that there are fewer defects there. So the testing happens locally and in production. It is okay to test at the production stage because it is unstable yet, and we need to know how it all works. Then, of course, the first users appear at the project, and there is the necessity to make testing in a more thorough way. So we need testing that is similar to production, but not at the production itself, because we cannot be in the way of our users. So we start making staging and introduce testing. We create a QA team, and they use staging for testing as well. We did not write automatic tests in the very beginning, but with the development and stabilizing of the product and the project, we started to cover the main features. Right now, everything stabilized and has been working for quite a long time like that. And for a large number of projects, it is a rather standard way to work. And somebody even stops at this point. There is one staging, there is a QA team, and they use it in their work. And here we have to speak about the approach that we use for code delivery to production. So we used continuous delivery. It is quite a well-known approach. In our case, each task is divided into smaller pieces, and each task has its own pull request, and this pull request is sent to the platform where the code tests are held. Everything else is sent. It is, after all, sent to the QA team, and then, if everything is fine there, then the code is sent to the production. And it is difficult to have only one staging with such a scheme. If you have continuous delivery, it means that you have many releases and you have a lot of deployments, and it can happen so that there can be several tests and production. And it's difficult to have staging in this system because for each branch, for each change of the code, you need to change it manually. Not in all the cases, but in most of the cases it is manually. Also for a QA team, it is quite difficult to import links to mistakes or defects that happened during the testing and staging. And the links do not work because there is new code there. Besides, when we use such an approach, and when there are several testers, when the QA team has several people on board, It is very difficult to use it because there is one staging, and we can use it either it alone to see who's using which branch at the moment, because each branch is tested separately, or to make testing locally. But locally is not production, so it's not a good idea.
So it might seem a good idea, but why can't we have several stages? Or even better, why can't we create a new stage and create a new one for each pull request? So it sounds quite easy. So we use continuous integration IT platform, which runs the test so that it creates server in the cloud. We used Hero because it's quite easy. Heroku was quite easy, and the system created some dependencies like a database or data storages. It sent code to there, and actually it seemed quite fine from the first glance, at the first glance, but it wasn't that fine because we have to, if the pull request is complete or merged, so we have to create server stacks. So we have to remove like small bugs, and also not after the merge, but before the merge. And we have to use the deployed of only the branch, specific branch at the right time, because when you have to send it to the stage, not all the time of the open pull request, not during all this time, you have to test it at the stage. And of course, when and the code is updated at the stage automatically, and it all sounds as the application at our own server. So it performed all these functions, like sending the code, and also it might have the links following which the user could initiate the deployment process and remove a server if it has already been deployed earlier. And here you see the scheme of deployment, and most of the other cases, like removal of the code, deletion of the code, or deployment of the server, it looks quite similar. So user creates pull request, and our application for deployment. So here he leaves deploy button, and then we deploy this pull request. Further on, if some tester wants to start testing, he needs a new staging. He goes to pull request, presses the button, and then he starts deployment of the new application. And that's how our application for deployment downloads the code from the pull request, creates servers, sends, creates various interdependencies, sends the code there, and actually after that, a user, like a tester in this case, might use this deployed application for testing or for some other tasks like that. So we've implemented this application, we started the development, and we started to check how it works and whether it fits our needs. And in the process, we found out that we need an additional feature, and and we need more. So we need to see the message that the application been developed, that it's been deployed, and it's nice to see the notification. And in this notification, we need the links to the deployed application, because every application has its own link. And I think it would be good to see logins and passwords for the users, so that you see the information, so you don't need to remember something. Well, it's been implemented in a quite easy way. The functionality is quite simple. And then after some time, we see that we need logins of these compilations, and the application might either fail or some migrations fail. In case it fails, our application writes to the pull request a build log, some backtrace, some bugs are identified, and we can see immediately in the pull request all the information about the deployed application. So that's how actually we deployed this application, and it helped us a lot. We started to use it, and everybody liked it. And Well, we might think, oh, why do we need it? But it reduced the code. It reduced the time to deliver the code to the prod, and our development became faster. It improved the quality of testing for us. Nobody else had to decide when we need to deploy it on the stage. So if we need to test, just press the button and you get clean application with clean data. So we've been using it for quite a long time. And well, when the problems start, sometimes problems are getting quite serious. For example, our compilation became much slower. Generation of an environment started to took more time because the application was becoming bigger, and the deployed project requires much more resources and a lot of time in the database, and it takes time. And it coincided with the stuff.
Принято решение отказаться от инструмента. Но мы решили, что подход замечательный и может много где...
The staff reduction at the customer, and well, this is an approach when for each pull request we have a specific environment, new server, and when there is an instrument to manage all that, that's good. And so we decided to try to use it, but we couldn't use the old application because it was shaped specifically for this startup project. So a lot of time has passed, and we started to think what kind of new instruments we get. And we started to get new instruments, and finally we needed an application with one-click deployment, with deployment of several depositories at a time, which would be quite flexible and cheap, and we couldn't find an application which would be able to implement all the requirements. And being inspired by previous implementation, we started to develop universal open source instrument. So we started to develop it. We called it deploy QA or just deploy QA. The main idea of this application is quick deployment of demo environment for small and middle-sized projects. So that team doesn't bother about the scripts of deployment infrastructure, but just clicking the button, it can create the new environments, and that's it. That's very simple. So just to use it for testing. And basically, so how to start actually using this instrument? A user can install the application to the GitHub repository and to choose the new necessary interdependencies, to write commands for launching variables, and then after pressing buttons in pull request, you can create new environments, and that's it. That's as simple as that. And we decided at first to use Heroku because it was very convenient cloud, which helps to forget about some small details of deployment. So we use the dependency system from Heroku, databases, and all this stuff. And also we implemented our own dependencies like data storage, for example. So, for example, this is the dependence, so that in each environment we could create Amazon and Street buckets. So each environment had its own database, has its own storage of data, and all those are isolated, and it's quite similar to the prod. They don't see each other, and they are coming out quite clean without any problems with the data. Also, we managed to create improved management of deployed environment. As you can see in this slide, this is the screenshot from our application. The design is quite brutal. We currently are focused more on development, but later we are going to improve the design. So here you see the actions. That's all that can be performed with the deployed environment. And you can update it, you can manually update the code, just pressing the button. You can basically, there are some dumps of the database, you can either upload or download the database. So it's very convenient, especially when you need to test at the staging the dump of database from the prod. And also, if you want to download from the station the DOM of the database, you can do it through the interface. And for debugging, it's also okay. But also, we have editing of variables, the deployed environment, and also reference to the DOMs. I mean, the list of access to each DOMs, to the database, data storage, etc. Here you see the backlog of each action. It's logged in the table, indicating the author, who and when created it, and also the build block of the application. Everything happened to it. And this is the description, the name, the Git branch, and a link to the application.
Also, this deploy feature can open several applications at the same time. So, for example, if your application consists of two big services, each of them is in its own repository, and when they are being opened, they will be deployed, all of them. So in this screenshot, you can see how you can create a new build in this case, and you can use a separate branch for it and deploy it. And here in this screenshot, you can see how these buttons look at pull request. So it's a link. When you click the first one, you make the surroundings, and then you can add the branches, and the settings are there. And in order to summarize this instrument, I can say that why you need it and what problems it solves. So you might need it if you have some problems with staging, maintenance, and managing. So you don't know which one to deploy and how or it takes a lot of time. So it takes manually, and it is done manually. And when clicking the button, you're basically deploying everything in your surroundings. So if you don't have a staging, then deployment is a good option for you as well. Or maybe you need to make some kind of a demo or some kind of sandbox box for your client, so that your client can test your API and so on. So this thing has as well for that. So deploy is a open instrument. You can find it on GitHub, and you can also use it as a SaaS platform as well. You can see the links on this slide. So thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Hello, thank you for a very interesting presentation. So when you made this decision about this new thing of yours, did you study the market of similar things, of equivalents? Why did you decide to stop on that? Yes, we looked for it, and there is an instrument GitLab, and there is a GitLab review app that is very similar to this instrument, and it cannot deploy several repositories at the same time. Besides, the users have to write their own script deployers, and it is very difficult for them. So we get rid of it, and you do not have to make any other settings. And it is easier with scripts for Heropib, and there are several other instruments that do not have all the features that we needed, and that's why we decided to develop something of our own. And also we're focused on a query. Thank you for your presentation. I want to ask the opening of new application was due to the low number of or big number of testers, or with two other reasons. Well, first of all, a big number of testers, and besides, we all wanted to have a clean database, and we wanted to make it easy, not with our own, not manually, and not to create additional scripts, and besides, we wanted to test parallelly. And another smaller question: when you had a startup, You had users on the project before testers. So was it some kind of a material issue, or why was that? Well, it's difficult to answer this question. Well, it just happened this way. So we tested in the very beginning ourselves, as I have already mentioned, and it was enough. It was stable enough to attract its first users. But when we had more users, we couldn't make it on our own when we needed testers then. Hello, thank you for your presentation. How do you create test data after creating surroundings, and does your application need some test data? Thank you for your question. Right now we have implemented the following feature. We launched seeds, and right now and they record some data. Right now we're trying to implement such a thing that when opening we have a chance to go to the database, and done base is created as soon as the application is launched. So that's it. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions, you can continue with your discussions in the special areas.